At 94 years old, Barbara Eden is still surprising people. More than 6 decades after she worked with Elvis Presley, and more than half a century after I Dream of Jeannie made her one of television's most recognizable stars, Eden has revealed a conversation with Elvis that she never forgot. According to Eden, the young singer once asked her a surprisingly personal question. How could two people make a marriage work when both of them were living inside the pressures of show business? It happened years before America knew Barbara Eden as Jeannie, and today, as she approaches her 95th birthday, that memory opens the door to a much larger story. What happened to Barbara Eden after the magic of I Dream of Jeannie ended? And how did the woman behind one of television's most famous characters build a Hollywood life that has lasted for nearly 7 decades? Barbara Eden was born Barbara Jean Moorhead on August 23, 1931, in Tucson, Arizona. Her childhood was far removed from the glamorous Hollywood image that would later define her. After her parents divorced, Eden grew up primarily in San Francisco. Music became one of her earliest interests. She sang in church, performed with local groups, and developed the confidence that would eventually lead her toward professional entertainment. But becoming an actress was not a simple or immediate transformation. Like countless young performers, Eden had to learn how to enter an industry where thousands of people were competing for a very small number of opportunities. She studied acting and eventually went to Los Angeles. Television was expanding rapidly during the 1950s, and Eden arrived at exactly the moment when the medium was creating a new generation of stars. Her early work included small appearances and guest roles. Then came an opportunity on one of the biggest television shows in America. In 1957, Eden appeared on I Love Lucy in an episode called Country Club Dance. She played Diana Jordan, an attractive young woman whose arrival immediately caused the men around her to pay attention. For Eden, working around Lucille Ball was a major early experience. She has remembered Ball as kind and supportive. Years later, Eden recalled how carefully she approached the role because she was entering the world of one of television's most powerful stars. It was a small appearance, but it put Eden close to the kind of television success she was trying to reach. Another important step came with How to Marry a Millionaire, a television adaptation inspired by the Marilyn Monroe film. The series gave Eden one of her first regular television roles. She was no longer simply walking onto a set for a guest appearance. She was beginning to establish herself as a working actress, and Hollywood began giving her larger opportunities. If you enjoy documentaries that look beyond the famous character and uncover the real journey of the performers America grew up watching, subscribe to the channel, because before Barbara Eden became Jeannie, she was already crossing paths with some of the biggest names in entertainment history. One of them was Elvis Presley. In 1960, Eden appeared opposite Elvis in the Western drama Flaming Star. This was not the bright musical version of Elvis that Hollywood often sold to audiences. The film gave him a more serious dramatic role. Eden later said she believed Elvis had genuine acting ability and that Hollywood never fully developed that side of his talent. She remembered him as professional, polite, and serious about doing the work well. But something else stayed in her memory. At the time, Eden was married to actor Michael Ansara. Both husband and wife were working in the entertainment business. According to Eden's recent recollection, Elvis became curious about their marriage. He wanted to know how two performers could protect a relationship while dealing with schedules, fame, and the unusual demands of Hollywood. Eden's basic advice was simple. Acting was their job. The work mattered, but the relationship required its own effort. At the time, Eden did not know how important that question might have felt to Elvis personally. He would eventually marry Priscilla Beaulieu in 1967. For Eden, however, Flaming Star became another chapter in a career that was gaining momentum. She still had no idea that 5 years later, a bottle, a pink costume, and a single television role would permanently change the way millions of people saw her. In 1965, Barbara Eden was cast as Jeannie. The premise of I Dream of Jeannie was wonderfully simple. Astronaut Tony Nelson, played by Larry Hagman, discovers a mysterious bottle after landing on a remote island. Inside it is a genie. Jeannie is powerful, playful, unpredictable, and completely devoted to Tony. What followed was a mixture of fantasy, romance, misunderstandings, comedy, and the kind of visual effects that seemed magical to television audiences of the 1960s. The series premiered on NBC in September of 1965. It ran for 5 seasons and produced 139 episodes, and Barbara Eden became unforgettable. The costume helped, the bottle helped, the famous blink helped, but the character worked because Eden gave Jeannie more than magic. She gave her personality. Jeannie could be innocent one moment and completely in control of a situation the next. She created chaos, solved problems, created new problems, and somehow remained lovable through all of it. There was also the chemistry between Eden and Larry Hagman. Tony was constantly trying to maintain an ordinary professional life while living with someone who could change reality with a blink. That tension became the engine of the show. But behind the colorful fantasy was a very different television culture from the one audiences know today. Network standards were strict. Even the idea of Jeannie and Tony sharing too much physical intimacy had to be carefully controlled. One of the strange ironies of I Dream of Jeannie is that a character dressed in a revealing Jeannie costume existed inside an extremely cautious era of American television. Eden later pushed back against the idea that Jeannie was simply a powerless woman serving a man. From her point of view, Jeannie was usually the person with the real power. Tony might give instructions, but Jeannie could completely transform his world whenever she chose. Then the writers made a decision Eden did not particularly like. Jeannie and Tony got married. For years, much of the comedy had depended on romantic tension and on Tony trying to hide Jeannie's existence. Once they became husband and wife, part of that tension disappeared. Eden later said she believed the marriage changed something fundamental about the show. Not long afterward, I Dream of Jeannie ended in 1970. For some actors, the end of a show that famous can become the end of everything. The character becomes so powerful that casting directors can no longer imagine the actor as anyone else. Barbara Eden faced exactly that problem. How do you stop being Jeannie when millions of viewers do not want you to? Her answer was not to run away from the character. Instead, she kept working. She appeared in television movies. She performed on stage. She starred in Harper Valley PTA, based on the famous country song and movie. She made guest appearances across television. She later appeared on Dallas, which brought her back into the orbit of Larry Hagman, now famous to a different generation as J.R. Ewing The Reunion carried an interesting sense of history. The man who had once played the astronaut trying to control Jeannie's magical chaos had reinvented himself as one of television's most famous villains. Eden continued appearing in television projects and later shows, including Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Decades after the original sitcom ended, audiences were still happy to see her, and Jeannie never really disappeared. Syndication introduced the series to viewers who had not even been born when the original episodes were made. Children watched it with parents. Then another generation discovered it. The character became bigger than the period in which she had been created. But while Barbara Eden's professional life was associated with light comedy and fantasy, her private life included periods of enormous pain. Her marriage to Michael Ansara ended in the 1970s. Their only child, Matthew, had been born in 1965, the same year I Dream of Jeannie premiered. As Matthew grew older, he struggled with addiction. Eden later spoke publicly about what it was like to be a parent trying to understand and respond to that struggle. She attended support meetings and tried to learn more about addiction at a time when families often discuss the subject far less openly than they do today. Then, in 2001, Matthew died at the age of 35. For Eden, it was a devastating loss. There was no television magic that could reverse it. No blink could make the situation disappear. And this is where the public image of Barbara Eden becomes very different from the real woman. Millions knew her as a character who could solve almost anything instantly. Real life gave her problems that could not be solved that way. Yet she continued. She kept working. She kept appearing before audiences, and she eventually spoke about her experiences in ways that could help other families understand the pain surrounding addiction. What do you remember most when you think of Barbara Eden? Is it the Jeannie costume, the famous bottle, her chemistry with Larry Hagman, or one of the many roles she played after the series ended. Her personal life also found a more stable chapter. In 1991, Eden married John Eichholz. By then, she had already lived several different versions of a Hollywood career. She had been the young actress trying to get noticed. She had worked beside Elvis Presley. She had become a television phenomenon. She had experienced typecasting. She had reinvented herself through television, movies, live appearances, and theater. And she had endured personal loss far removed from the carefree world audiences associated with Jeannie. In 2011, Eden published her memoir, Jeannie Out of the Bottle. The title acknowledged something she had understood for decades. She could never completely separate herself from Jeannie, but there was much more outside the bottle. Her career continued into later life. She appeared in the 2019 family film My Adventures with Santa. In 2025, she performed in Love Letters. And now, in August of 2026, Barbara Eden is 94 years old and still does not describe acting as something entirely behind her. In a new Entertainment Weekly interview, Eden said she remains open to another role if the material is right. She even joked about wanting the chance to play someone mean. For longtime Jeannie fans, that idea has a funny connection to the past. Eden also played Jeannie's mischievous brunette counterpart on the original series. Nearly 60 years later, she still remembers the fun of playing against the sweet image audiences expected from her. She is also scheduled to appear at the Cinecon Classic Film Festival in September, where she is expected to help introduce the 1961 movie All Hands on Deck with Pat Boone. And on August 23rd, she will turn 95. That makes the recent Elvis story more than a nostalgic Hollywood anecdote. It shows the extraordinary length of her career. Barbara Eden can sit down in 2026 and tell a first-hand story about working beside Elvis Presley before John F. Kennedy became president. She can talk about Lucille Ball from personal experience. She can remember television before color became standard. She can describe the birth of a sitcom that people are still watching more than half a century later. And she can still say she is interested in what role might come next. That is the real answer to what happened to Barbara Eden. She did not vanish after I Dream of Jeannie. She did not simply become a photograph from the 1960s. She kept working. She survived the limitations of being identified with one iconic role. She experienced love, divorce, professional reinvention, and unimaginable loss. And instead of rejecting the character that made her famous, she eventually embraced the unusual gift of being connected to something audiences continued to love. Share this story with someone who remembers watching I Dream of Jeannie, because entertainment history survives when one generation passes those memories to the next. The young woman who once stood beside Elvis Presley could never have known what was coming. She could not have known that 5 years later, a television Jeannie would make her face recognizable around the world. She could not have known that the role would follow her for the rest of her life. And she certainly could not have known that approaching 95, people would still be asking what Barbara Eden might do next. Maybe that is why her story has lasted. The magic was never really the bottle. It was the ability to keep moving forward long after Hollywood had decided what Barbara Eden was supposed to be. And after nearly 7 decades in entertainment, she is still here to tell the story herself. Subscribe for more verified documentaries about the stars whose movies, television shows, and music became part of American life.